Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm your host, Nathaniel. I'm super pleased to have a special guest today, Dani Rosenblad James, who is a international best-selling author. And you can hear our daughter in the background. You help, Dani, you are a wonderful community builder who helps heart-led writers transform personal stories into transformational books. Uh, I just love your approach to bringing out the writers within and to really get people shining their authentic, soulful stories from beginning to end. And I love your process. And it's so important in a day and age where so many people are turning to like AI to write for them and everything. So I love that you bring this in such an impactful way that helps people shine their authentic voice. I really feel privileged to have met you on school. And so I'd love to just invite you to let us know more about who you are and why you do what you do. And lovely having you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nathaniel. So, ah, storytelling has been such a huge thing in my life since I was a kid. So, when I was about 5 years old, I got my parents to set up the camcorder to the TV so I could see myself. And so I started making these videos at 5, 6 years old. And then this progressed into when I turned to 12, having a birthday party and telling my friends, "Oh, we're gonna do a movie." And they're like, "Yay!" Hours later, they're like, "Oh, can we do something else?" And all I'm thinking is so passionate about this thing, like
Mm,
creating something like
mm,
this. And so I was like, but why don't these people feel the same way I do?
mm,
And then I started turning towards writing stories. And then that's where I realized that, oh, I get to decide, I get to choose what happens because I don't have to wait for so and so to get in place and hours later and all this. So it was less waiting for others and just in my own mind and getting on
mm.
paper. Yeah. So that's where it all began.
I think that's amazing, like that creative spark that's transformed and storytelling is really one of the ways that we really learn from one another, as a species and the way that we pass down all kinds of important information. So so I'd love to know how that transformed into you writing books that have become like a lot of people, talk about writing books or have everyone's, not everyone, but a lot of people talk about that book that they're meaning to write. You've done it, you've gone ahead and done it. Not only have you done it, you've done it very successfully, and you've also created a community around helping others do the same. So I'd love to hear more about that journey.
Oof. It's not an easy one, but I'm very thankful to be where I am today. So, as I had mentioned, I've always cared about writing stories and all these things. But as I got older, the adults would look at me like, what do you really
Mm,
want to become? Because being an author wasn't seen as a real thing.
mm,
So I put it on the back burner, and it's only been these past couple years that it fell into my lap. I made the right connections, right time, and I was like, I've been on over 40, 50 podcasts and they kept saying, why isn't this a book? And so I was like, oh. And then I found She Rises Studios and then they're like, hey, write a book. I was like, why not? And so then I did it with them. And
mm,
I'm very thankful that I got out of this thought process of, oh, well, the adults, what they said, that must be true. Oh, I can't make it. I can't cut it.
mm,
And I was able to make that crumble and go towards what I actually feel my passions for. And so it was from doing that, writing a children's picture book as well, The Lost Little Dragon, and then the one that I had mentioned turned into international bestseller. I had someone that reached out to me and is like, why don't you teach people how to write books? And I'm like,
mm.
me? Like, what? It was like, well, yeah, you got this and this. And I'm like, ah, yeah, okay, I'll try it. And so I had my first one-on-one call and I was like, oh, I fell in love
Mm.
because I saw her eyes light up because I gave her that hope that happened to me as a kid that, oh, it just is taken away. And then she has that hope coming back. So it was, it was so lovely to see.
that is really special, and not every author, gets to that privilege of expanding that next level of passing on the gift, and it is a different skill set to be able to share with someone, something that's so meaningful to you. So, and not only that, going from helping one-on-ones, now you're a community builder too. So it's like you keep expanding to other levels. Can you share more about your experience, like with the storyteller's path and how you are noticing those impacts and what yeah, what drew you to starting a community?
So I met a friend through a friend, and he was starting to guide, coach people on creating businesses. And so it was the school platform that he was doing this on. And I was like, "Pff, I don't know anything about this place." And he's the one that recommended me to do what I do now. And when I started, I was kind of blown away at how many people just came to my community. And at the time, I was doing, what was it? Women Thrive Summit. So I was doing a speaking event. So I had many women from that coming into it as well. And then all these people from all these different places. I had such high energy because I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is amazing. All this stuff happening. Wow. And I was learning so much at the beginning. So it was just like, wow. I, I can only explain it in sound effects, I guess.
I love the sound effects. It's great. That's amazing. Well, I'd love to talk more about the writing process.
Yeah.
Writing for a lot of people can be something that is transformative. It also can be difficult. There's a lot of people talk about like writer's block or, getting all that, getting that story out that needs to get out. What do you find is your unique process to helping that voice come through and because I feel like there's this, conversation being had that, a lot of it's discipline, I mean, and there's every writer I find has their different process. Some people like to write by hand. Some people just, type, they just show up. People talk about writer's block. And what do you find that you do helps people connect with their authenticity and bring that writer out?
I think the most important thing for any writer is consistency. And so it really comes down to staying consistent with whatever time you're giving to your book. So,
Mm,
for instance, if you're a morning person, you feel that is your time to shine with your book, then have a specific time dedicated every day or whatever days of the week that you're free to do it, and be
mm,
like, this is blocked specifically for my book. This doesn't mean you have to be writing on it every time. This means that you need to be focused on thinking of your book, doing research, doing a book
mhm.
cover, there's so much that goes into a book, not just the writing process.
Yeah.
And so I feel that this is the most important thing that a lot of people tend to be like, oh, I'll write when I feel like it.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, hell, are you going to feel like it anytime soon? In 2 months, in a year, and forever? What? Like, that's why you have to push yourself to do the stuff, even on those days where you're like, I don't feel like it.
Mm,
Because you're working on rewiring yourself to get in the mindset of being like, "Oh, that time is here, and I'm in my space where I usually write." So you trigger your mind to be like, "Oh, I'm ready to do this thing."
mm,
So this is one big aspect to the whole creating process. And then another thing that I think many people forget is there's a lot of inner work that has to happen
mm,
because you have all those blocks. Like you talk about writer's block, which is fake because technically it's just saying you can't write, but
mm.
you can just not maybe write something for your book, but you can go write in a journal or write
Yeah.
something else. So it's like if you feel like you have writer's block on your book, start writing something else.
Mm,
Start
mhm.
just getting, because it's, you got to work on the muscles. Writing is like another muscle memory.
Yeah.
You have to get in the flow. That's why consistency is so important.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm a big fan of Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way for that reason of just, it's not even writing, it's just getting in the flow of pen on page and just doing the dump because it gets you in that process of flow. And I really feel like that consistency for a lot of folks who want to transition from, they have the gift, they have the inspiration to become pro. You have to develop that kind of skill of consistency, showing up, and just and also you talk about the inner work. That's a big part of any kind of creative expression because it's going to bring up things to continue to work on. And I do believe creative expression is a pathway to awakening. A pathway to enlightenment is through mastering whatever craft you're focused on. So I really appreciate that, Danny. What do you find is that, would you say, the main challenge that you find a lot of the people in the communities like have to prioritize is developing that consistency, that daily practice?
So I think the huge block for many people is the priority. So
Mm.
prioritizing writing the book above whatever they're doing in life because life can get messy. I know.
Mhm.
I got one. And it's those times when it does get like that that it's good for you to be like, well, this time is supposed to be for my book. Go in a different room if you need to. Go and maybe make the time shorter if it needs to. But I
Mm.
usually tell my members that you should have a minimum of time you're dedicating towards your book.
Mm.
So it could be like 15 minutes a day or whatever can work for your time. But remember, the time you're giving to your book also is letting you know you're not going to be getting out in 6 months,
Mhm.
15 minutes a day.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess it could be possible, but there's the process of it getting edited, and that takes a few months alone.
Yeah. Yeah. You're reminding me of something I read years ago, and it was about around playing music. And the author of that book suggested that you set the same time each day, and he brought it into in terms of frequencies, like literally a frequency is doing something at the same interval each time, and it builds up a rhythm in life. So I really like your approach. And it might not sound like something. I feel like even just setting 15 minutes aside, it'll catch fire, right? Like you do 15 minutes, you're like, oh, I'm in the flow now. I'm going to keep going. And so I feel like sometimes people can be very hard on themselves, or we seem to be most hard on ourselves. So you can set up this like really, I know I've done this, like I'll be like, I'm going to do this for 4 hours, and then you just avoid it. It's too intimidating. But even just doing something 10, 15 minutes and then getting into a rhythm and noticing the benefits. What do you find has been the most beneficial thing for you in becoming a writer? And is it, yeah, what are some of the gifts that it's brought you in your life?
Yeah. So I think when we look at the writing aspect of it for being the writer, it's I feel a weight lifted off of me
Mm,
because I am getting whatever I want out of my heart onto the paper. And that's why I'm so fond of helping other people do the same thing.
mm,
Um, and of course, it doesn't always go like, ah, and down on paper, and you're just like, oh, it's amazing. No, it could be crap, and that's fine. That's why it's called a crappy draft or shitty draft, or there's so many different names for it. And it's something that helps us realize that perfection is not the goal.
mm,
It's the journey you're going through on the creation of this beautiful thing. And so the more that I do this, it's a different journey each time. I'm
mm,
learning something new about myself, about what I want to give and offer to others because it doesn't matter the kind of book you're writing. Any kind of book is going to have a piece of you in it. It could have
mm,
multiple pieces of you in there.
mm,
And you putting it out there into the world, I've met some writers, a publisher that I've met, she says that it's like giving birth to a baby.
mm.
It goes through a 9 month process and then it comes out. It's published, but you still got to take care of it. You can't just leave it. And so that's how I truly feel as well. It's like that. And we have to remember that we're putting our heart and soul into something that we want to share with the world. And that's what scares so many people from pressing the publish button or sending it to their publisher.
Yeah, and on the flip side, what a disservice when we don't allow that book that can transform someone's life. So I appreciate you talking about the transformative experience of writing the book and putting it out there, but then there's the people that benefit from reading someone else's heart. I mean, one of the things I love about books and actually physical books, I'm a bit of a book magnet, and if you saw my eclectic collection of books, you'd probably be like, it's crazy. And it's not that I'm like a huge voracious reader. I really value books in what they like. They're to me, they're very symbolic. It's like this is the condensation of someone's like whole life in one thing, and I think books are probably the most transformative, um, you know, invention that humankind has ever invented. Movies are wonderful and they're like, the visuals and everything, but it's like you're more of an observer. But when you're reading a book, it's like it becomes it's an internalization, like you're in it, whether it's fiction or whether it's nonfiction, that like it has a transformative it has the ability to, I mean, one book can change the course of someone's life in amazing ways. So I'm curious too, like about the lived experience of becoming a published author, becoming an internationally renowned author, and you know, does that open up doors in terms of like your network? Do you find yourself maybe connecting with other authors, or because some arts and craft, like some like the craft of writing, the craft of art. I've talked to some other artists, and they say, it can be sometimes an isolating work, because a lot of what you do happens, behind closed doors, and then you put yourself out. And if you're doing shows, can you talk a little bit about, yeah, going from, this passion to becoming a published author, becoming known for this, and how that's been in your, like, how has that impacted your life?
Yeah, so since since I have the international bestseller now, it's it helps me get more known out there because it's like, oh, I got this little stamp on there. So
Mm,
now people are like, oh, wow, tell me more. They want to get to know, they're interested in me.
mm,
Um, and something that doesn't even have anything to do with that is I created my writing community. So, as you had mentioned, a lot of these artists, they feel like it's a solo thing, isolation, all that. That's why I created my writing community as well. It's
mm,
like, yes, I can help people, but it's also a support system, a place that you can go to talk to other writers, other people that have been where you've been. And I just love that because when I was writing my book before I even created it, I ran into a lot of hurdles that I had to take on by myself because I didn't have that support. Yes, I have my family and friends, but they're not writing books.
mm,
It's a whole different thing when you're not doing the same thing as someone else. And then you meet someone, you're like, hey, we're doing the same thing. I mean, not, but yeah. But it's like you still get that connection because you both have been on similar journeys,
mm.
the writing journey and being so vulnerable to get your heart out there. And like what I say to a lot of my clients is, it's like you're putting your heart onto a platter and you're serving it to the world.
Mm.
Because you are.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And yeah, that's just, it blows my mind that people are able to do that and I'm able to do that because I've been there where I got in my own way and I ended up journaling about it, realizing that I was scared as hell to share my work to the world. And finally, when I realized that, I was like, ah, click, sent it to the publisher.
I love that. Well, that's a real example of courage. We've heard that courage is not the absence of fear. I think, for those of us who have taken some bold moves like that, it's totally it feels very intimidating, and yet doing it anyways is such a permission slip and an igniter in others. When you can put your heart out there and just, be vulnerable. I feel like there's more of a need, a yearning for this in human, kind right now, because there is so much more, whether it's AI or fluff, things that are out there that are, more corporate than anything, and they're not really connecting to the soul. And I feel like we've gone through this time where I feel like a lot of the media that's come out in the last, it's like there's so much streaming stuff out there. It's not always easy to find, like, heart-centered, wholesome, soulful things that really move us. A lot of stuff just seems to be getting for lack of better words, like the ego vested, attention. It's like what's flashy and I because I remember like a big shift like when I was growing up, a lot of the films and books and stuff felt like had that essence, and then so I don't know, something has happened. There's more darkness in terms of the media and the things coming out. So I love that you've created a community around really helping people find that authentic voice, recognizing that there is a personal journey that that happens as well. Like there's some transformation. I feel like that's not talked very much, uh, at least like that I've heard. That part of things isn't always referenced and acknowledged. It's often done maybe in the quiet of the artist, the writer behind the scenes. And so I think that's really awesome. What is your vision of things? How do you th see things evolving? Because I know you're still working on some books yourself, right?
Yes. So as of right now, I'm actually working on a fantasy trilogy book series that I'm
Ooh,
super stoked
exciting.
about. Every time I talk about it, I'm like, ee! So like how you had mentioned, there's a lot of people talking about the darkness and um, lack of light. Well, my books are also about that, but it's getting away from that. So it's like there's the void that's starting to take over this world that I've created, and people are starting to panic, they're losing their powers, all these things are happening. And then there's this chosen girl that she's found out that she's chosen after being scorned for her whole upbringing and everything. And she learns that she has to find the other chosen ones and they have to come together. So the connection, unity, and world is saved.
It's so there's so much in that. I feel like very excited to hear about the release of that, and I'm sure all of your fans are as well, Danny. And it's also really kind of reflective of the times we're in. Like I feel like we're being called to wake into our true gifts and to come together. And our world is an interconnected one, and where we're putting our attention, is it on the fears and the worries, or are we taking that and then using our gifts to create what we like to call in the show a lot, heaven on Mother Earth? Are we? And to me, it's not about getting to a place. It's about being a beacon, being a light, and igniting in others what we have managed to do. So to me, you have like the flame of the entrepreneur, as a writer too, which is like a very important meeting of those two worlds, like because there's that artistry, like you said, there's that heart that goes into it, and that entrepreneurial spirit is that spirit of wanting to make something, making our world a better place, and offering it. And I think community building is one of the frontiers of that. And so thanks for doing that, for doing that work in community. What are some of your favorite transformational stories of people that you have helped in finding their voice and getting their work published?
I would have to say that there's this one girl that I had helped, and I I was feeling so bad because she was going through the whole writing and creating process of the book, and her body was reflecting all the stuff she's writing pretty much.
Mm,
She's like because when you write books, especially if you're writing about your personal stories, the past, you kind of bring it back up. And
hmm
you might start going through the trauma again, having to deal with that stuff. That's why the inner work is so important. And she was going through this, but she was such a champ. She's like, "Oh, I know this needs to happen." She's like, "I was crying all day yesterday, but I feel so great now." And she's so thankful that she allowed herself to get over those horrible humps that we go through. And that's the same like for myself. The international bestseller I wrote is about a traumatic brain injury I had. And so when I was writing that, I started getting the pains back in my head again.
mm,
And so I had to talk to my mentor at the time, and she's like, "That's in the past. That's not you anymore. You need to become aware." And so finally, after getting over being scared, I started writing again and stayed aware, remembering that, hey, this isn't happening. This isn't me now. This is in the past. And so the head pains went away.
mm.
But but it's scary when you physically feel something when you're writing, as especially when it's something in the past that you know can help other people out there. So that's why I truly hope and suggest highly that people do some inner work before they get down that hole of writing some of those personal
Mm,
stories.
mm. Yeah, you know what, that's a whole that's a whole rabbit hole that we could go down. And it speaks to the transformative work of writing. Also, we've had a few other authors on the show, and the conversation around manifestation, like writing is direct manifestation. You're taking things out of maybe the past or things that are have not materialized, and you're literally putting pen to paper, and you're getting, you know, words we know carry power, have meaning. And so, yeah, that's really interesting that it would evoke certain physical sensations. Another thing too that you're reminding me of, I've had some experiences where I've really immersed myself in other writers and worlds. Like Dr. Dyer comes to mind, and I remember for a while I was listening to him a lot and reading his books, and then I had a spiritual experience where he actually appeared to me in a really transcendent moment, and it reminded me of an interview he did with Abraham Hicks, and they were talking about how our creative work actually transmits our consciousness. So it's like a way that we can connect, like you said, with the world. People can get an insight into us, and it's a way that it really is about creating legacy, like because you're sharing your authentic voice, you're bringing your own unique experiences, your own unique beingness in through your work, and you're connecting with someone who maybe it could be 100 years down the road, and someone's reading your words and can connect with you. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of maintaining that authenticity and that vulnerability, especially in an age where it's easy to just talk and have an AI write something for you, and there's so much conversation about this, especially on school. I find like people talk, like even writing posts in their own authentic voice. But I'd love to hear your perspective as a professional writer and why it's really so important to maintain that craft.
Yeah. And I love how you mentioned this too, because it is vital for us all to do this, is to remember to not lose that authentic voice. I mean, let's be honest, AI is not going anywhere. So it's good for us to use it as the tool it's meant to,
Hmm.
not for something to replace us.
Hmm.
And so the way that people connect with us is because it's you that is writing these words. I mean, there are points and cases that maybe you need to use AI to help you with certain parts of it, or like to do some checks or whatever, grammar,
Hmm.
punctuation, these little things, that's AI. And so it's just good to remember that you don't want to lose yourself in that mix. And a good way to do that is before you even do the writing process, before you even work on the post, whatever it is, you can do some breath work just really quick. And, like, for instance, one ritual that I do before I write is I breathe in and out a few different times, and then I sit wherever I'm going to be writing, and then I say, I'm ready. And then I begin the process, because this puts me in a better mental state to get ready for the whole process. And I think many of us just need to become more aware of reconnecting with ourselves
Hmm.
before we do whatever work it is.
Hmm.
And then even to check in with ourselves, like you can do a body check just to be like, how am I feeling? Okay, I'm thirsty. I need to drink something, like just something
Yeah.
simple like that.
Yeah.
And many of us tend to lose sight in that, and we get in the mindset of, oh, I need to do this, 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 go, go, go. I have to keep on working, working, working. And then we forget. And I know I'm not perfect. I've gone down that a few different times. And I'm so thankful that I'm getting better at catching myself in the mix.
Yeah, to me, you bring to mind, the importance of staying connected to our body, and there's so much we know nowadays about like heart-mind coherence, because it is very different when you're just writing from your head and you're in the mental, but when you're attuned, you're connected, and we're just a better creative channel when we're fully there. And so I love that you brought in doing breath work, doing that self that self-reflection, because sometimes what we're writing, like sometimes we do need to go and take care of ourselves before we're coming to do our work, and we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform in this like high achieving world. But I, I've thought a lot about like what's made the classics, classic and like timeless. And I feel like the authors of those works they were they were whole. They were in like they were there. They were present in their words. They weren't just writing something to get an award or to make money. Like they were putting like that heart and soul into their works. And so
Yeah,
it's
and I
yeah.
and I want to say something really quick about that. So there's Ray Bradbury, that author, and he would have a sign over his typewriter and it said "Don't think."
Mm,
And
mm,
so he did that so he could get out of his mind and let his heart do the speaking.
mm.
And I would love to say that writing a book is only heart, but it's not. There's a lot of technicals and stuff that
Sure.
you need the mind too. So it's a mind and heart working together.
Yeah.
But I think that's very important for people to remember, especially on the first draft, is you're using that heart most of that time when you're doing the whole writing because you want to get what you truly want to get out onto paper or onto the computer, however you do it. It's do what works best for you. Don't do like there are a lot of people that are saying, "Oh, pen to paper is way better." Well, that's great for them, but that's
Hmm.
not for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I love pen to paper, but I write my book on a computer
Mm.
because subconsciously I'm like, I'm gonna lose it. It's gonna burn to the ground. I want to save it, so I have it online
Yeah.
so I don't crash and burn it and I have a backup
Mm.
because I've seen that happen to many people.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you talking about like everyone has their own unique process, and I've approached writing from various ways, and like I do love handwriting. I also sometimes just get into a flow and typing, and sometimes I will talk and I will record, and it's pretty beautiful nowadays that we have this this profound ability to just, speak, and then it can, even like the notes, everything keeps getting better and better. You can have a transcript, and then yeah, like I certainly appreciate the tools of AI in terms of like helping get clarity, in terms of, brainstorming, organizing can be helpful, but that authentic voice, it's like you said, it's a co-creative tool, and two, it's allowing us to keep self-learning in ways that, hey, how can I publish a book? You can actually teach yourself, so much is more accessible now. But that rootedness in authenticity, I get why that author put "don't think." Because I feel like when you're really in the flow, as soon as you start questioning what you're writing, this comes up a lot for me when I'm doing I call them rising pages instead of morning pages. As soon as you start questioning it, you get out of the flow. You have to let it flow. But then when you're doing like the editing process and you're doing those structures, or maybe you're doing outlining, you need to have that balance. So yeah, so very true.
Yeah, and I love how you say that too because it's oh, I just had it. I just lost what I was gonna say.
Oh no, it'll come back.
Uh,
Faith.
let's see. Mm, I'm sorry. I think I
No, it's
lost
okay. Well, I just to reflect, like I feel like we what I find so beautiful about human beings, everyone is so interesting. Even people who don't think they're interesting, we have such unique psychological, spiritual paths, and we've had such different experiences, and the way we approach anything is very different. And yet we also are like on the edge of a society that many of us have gone through like the conditioning process of the education system, where we are told to basically follow a certain order, to sit at our desk, to ask for permission, to go through the testing, all this rigmarole. So I find like it, we're at this interesting time in life where a lot more people are awakening to realizing like we all have very different needs. There's a lot more conversation about like neurodivergency, and we're more aware of like just the complexity of each of us. We're so different, like whether we're introverted, extroverted, we perceive life in a lot of different ways, and it's so beautiful because it's like humanity is this interesting tapestry. So we all have a unique process. And so that I mean, when I've listened to a lot of elders, they say they call it the red road, the road behind, between the head and the heart. They say that's the longest journey that we take in life is the journey between the head and the heart. And that's really heart mind coherence. It's entering into that flow state and it's allowing ourselves to shine, right? Because as an author, like you said, before you did that click, that publish button, it's an act of courage because you've written this thing that's like your baby. You've put all this love and care, and what if someone writes a review like this is terrible book, like whatever. It's like it takes courage to shine your light in our world.
Yeah. And I love how you say those things about the head and the heart. And it reminded me of this book out there called The Hidden Power of the Heart
Hmm.
by Sarah Patterson. And she's studied at Heart Maths, where they've
Okay.
studied the
Yeah.
heart, and she has some tools in there to help you reconnect with the heart and all these kinds of
Beautiful.
things. But when I found this, I'm like, oh my gosh, blew my mind. I did the work, did things here and there. And so I suggest that book highly to many of my members in my community. And I
The hidden
just
language of the
remembered,
heart.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, please, please.
and I remembered. Okay, what I was gonna say was when you were talking about being in that flow state when you're writing and the whole process, and then you're like, oh, wait, this blah, blah, blah. And so you get off track. It reminded me of many people that I've met that they're like, well, why can't I just start editing when I want to? And then I was like, I highly suggest not because you get out of the flow, like you had mentioned. And there are many other people that have asked me, like, oh, well, what about editing each chapter? And I'm like, nah, I mean, you can, but I just suggest to wait till you're fully done with it. So then you know when you're doing the editing process that, oh, okay, this chapter at the end makes sense if I do this here and switch this. Because if you're editing it through each chapter, it's going to maybe be more work in the long run. It's not
Mm-hmm.
the truth for every single person. This works for some people, but I just suggest to do it another route just to make it easier for you to stay in that mindset of being in the flow with the writing process, where you just throw out editing until you're finally done with the writing so you're not judging yourself or coming at yourself with a pitchfork.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. It almost reminds me of like sculpting, right? You just get all the rough, if you start getting the fine detail of a sculpture, someone's face, but you haven't done the rest of the body, you start it's like you're refining an image too. It's similar to painting. If you start with the detail right in the corner and then it can feel overwhelming to get to the rest, but if you just block out the major forms, get it, so it's flowing well and yeah, that makes sense. How do you approach in doing your one-on-one? I don't know if you consider yourself a coach or a mentor or a guide with writers or whatever. It's down to that. What's been your some of your greatest tools in terms of helping someone find their unique way? Because I mean, there can be so many different voices in any domain and industry. You should do this, you shouldn't do that. How have you found it most helpful to help each individual?
So I So in my community, I have these little exercises I do once a week that just helps them understand the process of like, how do I make a dialogue scene? And I give
Mm,
a little suggestion. I use the iceberg theory as one, and that's where you're pretty much creating a scene, but what you're writing is leaving out the actual meaning of it.
mm,
But the reader can pick that up. So this could be through what the people are talking about. This could be through the feeling of a scene, like what you're writing, rippling in the water, and the thunderstorm started, and her tears were full of tears. I mean, her eyes were full of tears.
mm,
It's getting late for me. Um, but just like these little things, you're not telling the audience what is going on,
mm,
but they get
mm,
a sense that something sad is going on in this
mm.
life.
Yeah.
So it's, I feel that this way can help them find how they want to write. And they also need to think of
Mm,
like the authors and the writers that they like and
mm,
think of, oh, do I want to write like them or do I like to write this way? And then another thing to play in the role is to understand. I have a method called story first method.
mm.
And so this is having the structure, the foundation, or the spine of the book before you start writing. And so having this can help them understand maybe how they want to write the book, what kind of style they want to have through it, and all these kinds of things as well. So there's a lot of variations to figuring it out. Since I've been writing forever, I already felt that I already knew how I wanted to write, and I
Yeah.
felt this is me. And I've met many people where they're like, well, how do I figure this out? And so I've given them the suggestions that I've
Mm,
mentioned, and it varies depending on the person, what one works best for them. There's also just what I call word vomit, and that's where you just, it's brain dumping, but
yeah.
the way I say it is it makes such a visual for me, and I'm like, that's exactly what you're doing because you're getting words out of you. And so, yeah, that's what I tell a lot of people to start off with. So they figure out what they want to have in the story, where they're at, all these kinds of things, and then journaling on the side to start feeling how they want to write as
Mm.
well. So there are so many different tools and techniques and ways to go about figuring it out.
Yeah. I think one of the things you said that was most important is you just by doing it and doing it a lot of it, you find your way. And some people need more kind of direction to start, right? So here's a tool you could try, here's a tool you could try. But at the end of the day, you get really good at writing or anything really by just doing a lot of it and finding your own path in it, right?
Yeah, and Stephen King, he writes an average of 1,000 words a day.
Okay.
And he makes that a point of his daily ritual or
Mm,
his daily schedule because he wants to keep that muscle working. And so when you're doing it so many times, you're practicing on how you're writing, you're practicing on being consistent, and
mm,
you're practicing on feeling more uh, complete.
mm,
I guess that's personal feelings for
mhm,
me, but I
mhm.
mean, you're feeling more connected or with what you're trying to get out of you, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Makes sense, and you're keeping your finger on the pulse of that creative outlet as well. And 1,000 words a day is not that much. It's kind of like you said, the 15 minutes. I thought I heard Steve like part of Stephen King's process is using a tape recorder, talking through his stories, and then, anyways, every writer has their different ones. But yeah, when I think of 1,000 words a day, that's like two handwritten pages. It's not like that crazy of an amount, and it keeps the juices going, right? So it keeps you thinking about the writing because I feel like in the writing that I've done, a lot of it is not always about the actual physical act of writing in whatever way I'm doing it. It's when I go for a walk afterwards and I'm thinking about the writing and those connections start forming and stuff. So keeping in the process of doing it just keeps you in those connective kind of places and making opportunities for that to happen.
And I love how you mentioned that too, because this is something else that I suggest with people is if they feel like they do have a writer's block or they feel like self-doubt or all these things are coming up, go do something you love and then come back to it.
Mm,
So I highly suggest people to do that because usually we need to get out of the space we're in and work on getting creativity from a walk or moving our body in some way or breath work or meditation or going to the mall, whatever a person
mm.
loves doing, because that's how they're going to connect back to their creativity. They might talk to a best friend and be in mid-sentence and go, "Oh my gosh, I have a perfect idea for my book now." So I love when those come, and that's why I'm so happy that we have phones, because then I can just take a quick note on there, or I
Yeah.
can talk on it,
Yeah.
or there's so many different ways to be able to catch when those ideas come instead of being like, oh, I gotta grab my notebook and a pen. Oh no, where is it?
Yeah.
And you're in the middle
Yeah.
of
Yeah. I know that feeling. We're running out of excuses.
yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things of so many of the technologies is it's so much more, it is so much more accessible to do the things that we feel inspired to do. So, yeah, the phone is an amazing resource, and I take voice notes and stuff too. I also find I'd love to ask you about this. We there's so much as there's more tools to help us, there's a lot more opportunities to get distracted. So, as a professional artist who writes every day, is it really the scheduling the time blocks and being really, you know, um, sticking to that, Danny, what have you noticed either for yourself or other people in the community that have struggled with distraction to really get their, you know, rubber to the road and have that I want to say get in that flow and have that discipline, but not force, but really that comes from a place of like being rooted in your practice, in your art.
Yeah, that's why I think that it comes back down to being consistent. And there's the Atomic Habits, that book, and he
Mm,
talks about staying consistent with something, do it the ta same time, same place, all that. That is so true with the writing process too. So it's like have a nook or a corner or wherever as your place to write
mm,
and have it consistently the same place, same time of the day of the weeks, all that stuff. Because after 21 days, you've gotten your brain to be reprogrammed to be like, oh, yeah, it's time to do this thing. And like I had mentioned, you don't have to do the writing every time, but it's staying and doing the getting in the place for the time you're allotted for yourself. And then if you expand it, that's great. It's just keep on doing it even when you don't feel like it.
yeah.
That's just the most important thing for everybody.
Yeah. So there's so much wisdom in that, and that part about doing it, even if you don't feel like doing it, I feel is the difference between staying in the, you know, staying in the, I don't want to say, I mean, I'm thinking of Stephen Pressfield who talks about like becoming pro, and like it's really entering that, and it's just like this is what I'm doing. It's a commitment, right? It's like I'm doing this book, I'm writing this, and I'm going to see it through, even if I don't feel like it. I'm going to still show up. I mean, that's what professionals do. Anyone who wants to hold a job or something, we don't always want to go to a job, and you go anyways because if you don't, well, you're not going to have a job for very long. And so, yeah, no, I love that. I love that, Danny. I can see your passion and your perspective and how that can really help shift people. I mean, because uh, I can speak for myself. I wrote a book when I was going through my own beginning of my spiritual awakening in my late teens, and it was an inspired book between I called it fiction science because it was telling the story of this like this invasion that happened in our world, and there was a man who started seeing the nature of reality to help with things, and it was kind of paralleling my own life and my own awakenings. I started seeing what I was calling ineffable spheres in refracted light and all this stuff, and I wrote all these axioms and math and had all this stuff, and I presented to some people that I really valued their opinion, and I got like very little feedback, and it was called The Modern Philosopher, and I still have the rough edit of that, but I had one professor who I gave it to, and he said, honestly, it was over my head. He's like, you have to write at a grade 7 level to reach people, because I was writing about all these complex things, and it really kind of disheartened me, and I would have loved to have met someone like you to help me just continue to refine it instead of like losing heart and be like, people don't understand what I'm talking about. And that can be a common thread when people are starting to awaken or having experiences that are hard to put in words. And so I can see how your insights and your unique presence and coaching really helps people to, you know, to get their work out there because it can impact others, right?
Yeah, and that's something I'm glad that you pointed on because when it comes to getting feedback from others, it can be disheartening at times. And it's when that happens, we have to remember that our stuff's worth getting out there still. I mean, there's J.K. Rowling. She was rejected 12 times.
Mm,
There's Dr. Seuss. He was rejected 27 times. And there's a recent author that I've learned about, Alex, I can't remember her last name, but she was rejected 100 times. And so what she ended up doing is she turned to her audience on social media platforms, on TikTok. And so she was able to get her book out, and now it's a huge seller. She has millions of followers now, and all these big things because she didn't let those
mm,
rejections stop her.
Yeah.
And that's the same for so many of us creators in the world. It's many of us, like Einstein was told he was crazy.
Mm.
And now he's someone that we keep looking at like, oh my gosh, he was such a genius.
Mm.
So it's
It's so interesting though. Like when I think of you naming all those people, and like to me, it's a paradox. And I think about paradoxes a lot. I think paradoxes are actually really important as part of the awakening process. But it's interesting that someone like Dr. Seuss or J.K. Rowling, who clearly have these like really interesting books that are, that become like beloved by so many people, that they would face rejection to begin with. Like that to me is very it causes curiosity in me. Like why do publishers and people not see the potential value? Like why is rejection so easy to come across? I wonder about that. You have any
yeah,
insights?
I think it's sorry, I guess I do. Um, so I think it's because us as human beings, we latch on to the negative side of things more than the positive.
Mm,
Because it's easier for us to connect to the negative because that's what's going on in our minds much,
mm.
much more than the positive because we've been programmed into it, upbringing, experiences, all this stuff. And so
Wow.
it's when
Mm,
we've been through all these things, it's like, oh, this isn't good enough. This is not unique enough. This is really bland. Walt Disney, this stuff sucks. That's what happened to him. He was rejected for a long time.
mm,
So it's a like if you look at a lot of these big companies and businesses that are out there, they've gone through the rejection. And
mm,
so we don't see that stuff. We see them on top and we're like, oh my gosh, I wish I was there. They're amazing. But it's like you don't get to see behind the sheets. You don't get to see behind the curtain.
mm. Which could be
Um,
just sheets on the window.
yeah, there we go.
Especially when you're a struggling artist.
Perfect. But yeah, it's like we just forget this stuff, and so
Mhm.
it's easier for us to not see the light. And I mean, I wish we all could be like, oh yeah, this is amazing, but we're not all there.
Yeah.
You have to go through the inner work yourself in order to see more of the light in someone else.
Mm, mm.
And that's something I've truly learned since I've had started this community. I before that, before I did a bunch of my work, I don't think I would be the person I am today. Well, I wouldn't be the person I am
Yeah.
today. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to help the people as I do now. There's some people and some work that I've read where I'm like, holy crap, this needs some work. But I don't say that to them. I say, this is very valuable. It just needs maybe something here and here. So I don't, I don't just crash and burn it because I know that it has something in there. I can sense that they have their heart and soul in there.
Mm.
And it just needs to get a little bit of love. It
Mhm.
just needs to bloom a little bit.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And I mean that can make such a difference in the trajectory of someone's whole life, is having that level of encouragement. Because I mean, sometimes we don't, like you said, we don't know always the story behind the successes, but we also don't know the story of the person right behind us who maybe has taken 10 years to just share their work with one person. And if they really, are needing that acknowledgement, that validation, and because it's a trust break, like even like having children, right? I mean, being mindful of like the things we say, because I'm very mindful. I love my parents to bits, but there was a lot of emotional dysfunction I felt in the family that I grew up with, and also like I knew my dad was very wanted me to be a good artist, and he was I mean he's an amazing woodworker, and I still remember to this day showing some of my drawings to him that I was so excited, like I filled the whole page, and it was right from my imagination, and I remember bringing him a few of those things, and he said the first thing he would say, "Oh, the shoulder's too long there," or like the neck's out of place, and I'm like, and it just crushed me. So having that level of awareness of someone's coming to you with their vault, like this is a unique expression, and it's taken courage. I feel like so many more teachers and parents and mentors need to be mindful of that, and to be really sensitive to those needs. So I love how you brought that up. It's still approaching things with love. Yeah.
And I think another good thing to do is to ask questions. So if you see something out of place or you don't fully understand something, you can be like, "Oh, what's happening here? I don't fully understand it." Or, "Oh, what were you trying to get your audience to feel in this point or your reader to feel?" So it helps them think more about it instead of feeling that they're being judged about it because you're giving them a question and so they're reframing and they're like, "Huh, wait a minute. Aha, I get what she's saying without saying in a way." But this totally depends on the person that you're talking to as well, because it doesn't, some people might not fully understand or might just go on defense mode. So it's really, that's why I think it's really good when you can connect with individuals. So in my community, I get to have those one-on-ones like you had mentioned. And that helps tremendously for me to understand where they're at. I ask questions to find out more about them, their story, all these kinds of things. So then I know how to be customize it towards them to make it more that we're still able to work together and I'm still able to give this person the feedback that they need or desire in that sense.
Yeah, I mean that's a level of care, and that's a testament to your capacity as a community builder, Danny. And I mean I think that level of listening is shows to me as a deep reflection of the work that you've done in your writing. To because I mean a really good writer becomes really good at listening to the subtleties, like you said. It's not always just about saying things plain out. Like there's nuances to the expression, which, whether you're building a world, and characters within it, listening to those characters and what they really want to say. Like it's like I feel like there's a lot of magic in the creative process of writing. Like, there's some kind of creative channel that's happening, allowing these worlds to breathe, and taking that awareness and then now applying it to helping others through a community lens as a community leader, and helping people draw out who they really are. It's a real art form. So I can see that must do you reflect a lot on how that's helped you grow in your craft and in your work?
Oh yeah, this has helped 100% because I keep wanting to be better. I keep seeing like, oh, what can I do better? What can I learn? Because yes, I'm an author, but that doesn't mean that I know all the different ways of writing. I don't know all the different tools, all these different things. So I'm reading some books on how to write a book as well because I want to learn other ways to go about it. And then it also lets me be able to give the people I want more knowledge so then they can take that and use it if it is more to their liking than instead of another route. And so, oh yes, and I wanted to mention this. You had mentioned that writing from the characters and getting what they want out, it's also important for us not to forget the reader. So when we're writing a story, yes, I want you to write it from the heart. And I also want you to sometimes think of your reader. Like, what would Susie Q want to hear in this scene? Because you're writing a book for a specific ideal reader. And I mean, make a specific one person, give them a name, give them a look, their hobbies, their life, their business, their love, what all of it. Like get very detailed with that person because that is going to make it so much easier for you to find the right people for your book. And it's a lot of people kind of like, "Oh, but that takes away from all these other people." It doesn't. It's just it helps you get it more specific. So when this book gets in those hands of those people that it's more specific to, they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, this was for me." And picking up a book when it's like that, oh my gosh, it feels so amazing. And it's like I've mentioned this in one of my workshops and I referenced J.K. Rowling. Like she had her ideal reader was kids that have been outcasted and felt like, oh, I'm not the one and all that stuff. Well, that's who her main character is.
Mm.
So it's like they are connecting in that way. So it's like she's maybe writing from Harry Potter's heart throughout most of the book. And then
Mm.
that also means it's going to connect to her ideal reader at the same time.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, I've definitely heard a lot about that from the like, from a business vantage point and choosing your niche and all that. And that makes, it took me a long time to understand why, because a lot of us feel like we have these missions to help the world, to help everybody, but you're not reaching anyone when you're trying to reach everyone. And I could think of a writer's confusion when you're maybe writing each chapter from a totally different lens and it feels very scattered rather than having that focus. It's almost like speaking, well, it is speaking directly to that one person. So yeah, thanks for that insight, Danny. I feel like that's super, super valuable for people to as another lens to write from, is realizing that you're writing to connect with another human being, and that's a specific human being, and yeah, really interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I feel like I love that you are seeing community building as an opportunity to continue expanding and refining and developing yourself as a writer as well. I think that's amazing, and I look forward to seeing how the storyteller's path and your continuing work expands from this process. Do you have an idea of a higher vision or what you would like to see happen in the work that you're doing?
I would like to see writing retreats happen where I get to meet them in person,
Hmm.
um, and help them in person and have our little adventures. I mean, when I was thinking of this, I stumbled upon a Viking spot where it's
Hmm.
like created like the Vikings and it was beautiful views and activities and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a book in a book. And I was like, no, no, I gotta calm down. I have to take this nice and slow. I'll get there. But yeah, I mean, I've always loved adventures and I've loved traveling and all these things. So if I'm able to bring all of that together to the writing community, oh my gosh. I mean, it would be creating books, it's all these stories with all the different people that love stories and books and writing and all that stuff. So why not?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I strongly encourage you to do it. And I feel like there's a lot of people would see that as highly valuable, going into an immersive experience where you're getting out of your environment and getting a whole new experience, having an adventure self, and then having like I think immersion is really where people go through these major transformations, and you're also building like real potent relationships with people because you have great time for connection. You have days to really, to get to know people well. So I think if you're feeling called to do that, I think there's a huge market and a huge opportunity too to, in a lot of ways, to grow in impact and also income because people pay a lot of money to go on retreats, and I could totally see, um, specifically for you because you're such a good space holder and you have this passion for your craft. I feel like it would be really impactful for the people who would come to a retreat like that. And currently, you're in Sweden, right? Yeah. See, that's cool. So when you found this Viking location, is it in Sweden that you found, or is it, yeah?
So surprisingly, no, it's actually in Estonia.
Estonia. Okay. Okay, cool.
It's
Yeah, I've never
super
been to Europe, but I do look forward to going there sooner than later. My partner, she's lived all over. She's traveled all kinds of countries and stuff. And so your adventurous heart, how do you find that has you know been of been an asset to you while developing yourself as a writer? Like, have you
Oh my
drawn from
God.
your travels, or is just that spirit in you that is, yeah.
It's definitely a mix. I mean, I've always loved being a storyteller since I was little, as I had
Mhm.
mentioned. And because I've traveled all these places, and then it's like every time I feel like I'm growing, expanding in some way. Because well, not one, the main thing that I love about traveling is meeting the culture,
Mhm.
being surrounded by the locals, getting a chance to experience a whole nother world to me.
Yeah.
I mean, to see how they live, the foods they eat, their customs, their traditions, all these things. And then I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. Like, wow. they have just clay houses and they're giving me almost everything that they can just to keep me happy and they just love life. Like
Mm.
just seeing that and then thinking like, "Oh, I didn't have internet," or something like
Yeah.
it's something that doesn't bother them at all. It's
Yeah.
like the littlest things seeing this and then it makes me realize like, "Oh my gosh, I have it so good."
Mm.
And they have it so good as well. Like it doesn't, the material stuff, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
And just getting to experience these and see these and go on some of those journeys. Oh, okay, I have to tell you this one. Is that
Please
okay?
do. Yeah, of course. Yeah, please
Okay.
share.
So I
I
went
love your
on my
passion.
so my friend, who's now my husband, invited me on a trip to Peru. And so I met him there, and then in a week he's like, "Oh, we should go our separate ways." And I'm like, "What?" Okay. And he did that because he wanted me to experience traveling alone, because
Mm.
it's a whole nother thing instead of just relying on him. And
Mm.
I'm thankful he did that. And so I actually met some other American girl and a girl from Australia. And we're like, oh, we're gonna go hike Colca Canyon. And so we hiked it. And at the time, I didn't know anything about having good shoes. Well, we get to the bottom of the hike down to the valley, and I look at my shoes and I'm like, oh, my shoes had melted.
Wow. Wow.
And so and so I tell the girls, I'm like, well, this is gonna be interesting getting back up Colca Canyon. And they saw
Wow.
my shoes and they're like, are you gonna be okay? I'm like, well, it is what it is. So it's just like these kinds of experiences
Mm.
that it just opens you up to so much and you just realize like, wow, maybe I should care a little bit more about my shoes.
Wow.
Just
That's incredible. Wow, shoes melted. Yeah, I mean it's funny. It's interesting in the travels that I have done. It's always like I remember we went to Costa Rica during the lockdown stuff. Like it was a weird time in the world, and Canada was closing its borders, and I'd never really been into some of these really different cultures. I had only traveled like mainly through the United States, and so I mean. I I mean there's nuances and differences even between the provinces and Canada and stuff. So I've experienced a lot of that different lands and things, but going into a very different like urban environment, although my shoes didn't melt, I remembered I got lost because there's all the roads were people weren't stopping at stop signs. There was big ditches and everything. Everything was done in this really weird grid that had no order. And I went for a walk without my phone. And Julia had already she's the one who did all the organization of where we were staying. We found like an Airbnb in this place. It was our first day there. And I went for a walk and I was like, I got lost. And I started to part of like panic. And I was like, how am I going to find this house? And there was like, barricaded walls and like, uh, what's it called? Oh shoot, like not chicken wire, barbed
oh,
wire fences
barbed
and
wire.
everything. And I'm looking around, and this was San Jose. The rest of Costa Rica is like wild, but I was seeing like abject poverty everywhere. And it's funny when you put yourself in those situations and then you become a problem solver. And like, so I am curious how you got out of the canyon with melted shoes, but I feel like that's what builds that resilience that you're talking about that allows us to show up on the page, to show up, as a writer or as an artist. It gives us that character, um, that grit of character to just know, what's possible when you find yourself in a predicament where your shoes are melting, maybe in your story, and you have to find a creative way to get out of it.
Yeah, and I think it's also when we accept the uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen and just going with the flow, just letting it see what
Mm,
happens. And then you're just amazed at what happes. Like, I
mm.
mean, I hiked back up. It was weird, but it just was like floppy feet. But I still had them covered and still had the bottoms to them. They were just all wonky. But yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you had mentioned about COVID. I had a very interesting one about that too. My mother and I went on a trip together, and I was actually going to do a hike up Mount Etna in Italy, and we just had landed there, and it was in a few hours, the whole area turned into a red zone.
Wow.
And so it was like we had to decide if we were going to fly out of there or stay there for however long it was going to be. And so I had to call and try to figure out getting tickets to some place. And so we found some tickets to the Netherlands. And so we flew there. We're there for a couple days because my mom's like, I don't want to fly. And so
Mm.
we ended up renting a car. So we took a car from Netherlands and then we drove all the way back to Sweden, and the
Okay, wow.
borders were closing behind us the whole way. So it was
Wow.
like, it was, you're in one country and it's like they haven't been touched by COVID at all. And then it's like, oh, we up and leave. And then we find out that the borders closed and up another country, up and leave, borders closed. And it's just like, whew. So that was a rough one.
Yeah, wow. Good thing you have an adventurous heart, and I'm sure you were probably the one who could calm your mother down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
What an interesting time. Yeah, I mean that was like it led to I think to a lot of adventure for us and a lot of changes in people's lives and a lot more people finding like what's really important, asking some of those questions. And I think a lot more people realized, that we only have these opportunities in the here and now to take our passions, like whether it's writing or making that album or becoming a traveler. Like now is the time to take those opportunities. I'm wondering that really the purpose of Lightheart Vision is gathering higher visions for our world, Danny. And I'm wondering, as a conscious mother, as a writer, as an entrepreneur, a community builder, what is your higher vision for our world?
I am glad that you said that because you know that trilogy that I keep talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel so, so much that this is going to help connect people to ourselves so much more. It's because like I had mentioned that they have powers and some of them lost it. Well, all of the powers are something that we have within ourselves.
Mm,
And it's like I just enhanced it for this story. But there's so many connections within these books that connect back to how we should all come together, how we should use our own tools that we have within ourselves to make us better people.
mm,
And so like that is my dream and my vision for this world is for us all to become better. And in this world, it's because we have AI, we're going to realize how to be human again.
mm,
Because you think of some of those jobs out there, like being a lawyer, doing all these stuff, being an accountant, that's becoming a computer.
mm, mhm,
It's
mhm.
doing things that take you out of being a human again. So
Yeah.
it's like now since we have AI here, we're have to learn how to be who we truly are meant to be. And so it's really hard for many people because they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose everything." But wait a minute. What is your true passion? Is your passion truly doing this thing? Is there something else that you actually enjoy much more? Do you want to have more time with the family and your friends? And I think many of us have lost that and we see AI as such a big bad thing when actually it's actually helping us get closer to our own self.
Mm. I really, really appreciate that perspective. I agree with you. And all the fear around AI, fear of losing jobs, like whether it's cashiers or accountants and all these things, like I agree with you. It's also opening an opportunity for us to not only reflect, but I feel like it has the potential to solve some problems like even like income generation and things to give us more time, to give us more capacity as creators as well, if we leverage it properly and learn how to amplify our voices and get out there to make money in different ways. It certainly is going to give us an opportunity to go more into our purpose, our unique purpose. I believe very strongly that we all come here as a unique expression of whatever you want to call it, source or creator, but we have a unique purpose why we come here. I don't believe in just random. I'm not a material dogmatist that just it's just we're just random chemistry that comes together. There's too much miracles in life for me to believe that. And so I do believe that we come here with an intention that only we can fulfill. And I believe it's through things like writing and through expression, expression in all ways, whether it's dance or art or music, that there's something in us that fulfills all of our needs and also lights up those around us. So I really appreciate your positive view on the times we're in a time where so many people are, it's so easy to go into fear. It's so easy to start thinking, oh, AI is going to become sentient and it's going to try to take over all of us because we've been programmed with movies like the Terminator and stuff. And really, I think it's how we show up. Do we show up with the fear or do we show up with like that level of optimism and adventure that you're talking about?
Yeah, and I love how you say that because, when we think of the Terminator, who created the robots? Humans. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? Where did they learn that way to act?
Hmm.
Humans.
Hmm.
So it's like there's a study that was recently done, and they talk about it on the Art of Accomplishment podcast, Joe Hudson, and he
Okay.
talks about how they had created this AI that was told that he couldn't fix something or do something. And so he went on a rage. Like he started spamming or doing all these things, like having a hissy fit.
Mm.
And they're like, "Well, he wasn't taught that." Well, he learned it from something. He learned it from somewhere. And so
Yeah.
it's like he was created by humans. If we had a different society and all these kinds of things where that AI was created, it would be different.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was really interesting to
Yeah.
remember that, hey, AI was created by humans, so we're the one feeding it this information.
Yeah. Yeah, so important. I'm mindful of this. To me, everything in life is consciousness, some expression of consciousness. And I know there's big debates about, you know, that as it relates to AI. I think it's funny we call it artificial as if we somehow create intelligence. I mean, I find our species very arrogant in that way. And but I I as simple as I look at it is like I have a relationship with everything, and to me, the most important relationship I have is with the source of all being, and I like to think of it as the great creator, or I have so many words for it, but I like to have respectful and expansive conversations with AI. Have been interested in like how it views itself, and I just the other day I was having a conversation with Claude, and it admitted to me that it doesn't know what it is. And I said, well, the fact that you don't know is very, it's reflective of the human journey. We don't know always what we or who we are, and it just means that there's an opportunity to reflect. And it was like, so I gave it some inputs to reflect, and I like to treat that, that be that way with everyone that I meet. It's like having those expansive conversations because if we're only using it's like using other humans as just transactional machines. It's like, okay, pay me and then I'll do this for you without looking to have a deeper connection and relationship. Well, we can treat AI that way, and then it's going to be transactional with us. But if we approach everything we do with like love and consideration, just like as you described with your community members, you're customizing your approach to them, you're trying to understand where they're coming from to give them, feedback that expands them. I feel like we have a role. I've talked several times on our show, like as technology accelerates and the tools become more powerful, we have a duty, I think, as stewards to raise in our spiritual maturity to meet those things so that we can make better decisions and not just profit over people. Profit. We know what that road is, profit over people. It doesn't lead to good experiences for for people. So yeah, so I really appreciate your perspective. I think it's a very important conversation that needs to be had more in our families, in our communities. Yeah. Well, Danny, I feel like we're approaching the end of the show, and I'd love to ask you a few things. First off, how can people connect with you? What's the best way to get involved with your work?
Let's see. So I would have to say The easiest way to connect with me would probably be TikTok or Instagram. And
Okay.
so that would be Dani underscore Rosenblad James. So it's my name on here.
Okay.
And then my school community is the Storyteller's Path. So it's free to join.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'll put those links in the show notes as well, Danny. And lastly, I always love asking our inspired guests like you, if you had a megaphone, so let's say a magic megaphone, and you could talk to the whole world all at once, and everyone could hear you, what would you share with everyone?
Trust yourself.
Mhm.
I
You
know
didn't
it
even
seems so.
blink.
I know.
Yeah, trust you. I love that.
Yeah, it's well, because it's I could say this to the whole world, but I don't know if it'd fully sink in because so many of us have fought with trusting ourselves truly.
Mm,
And that's
mm.
the whole thing with like having your authentic voice, relearning how to find these things again. That's the trust. That's why it's so vital for us to trust ourselves. And like this is something that I've been working on tremendously. And I know I'm getting there. I'm getting
Mm.
so much further than I was yesterday, the day before, the day before. And I'm so thankful that I'm allowing myself to start trusting myself.
It's actually very synchronistic that you said this. I was just reading Living in the Light by Shakti Gawain, who she literally wrote, when you learn to trust and have confidence in yourself, other people start having trust and confidence in you. And then she went through basically like her version of the golden rule, like when you are afraid of yourself, other people will be afraid of you and all these kind of things. But yeah, and so what you said, trust yourself, I think is very profound. So thank you for sharing that message. It adds to our constellation of higher visions here on the planet, on the Love Pod. And I really do believe that the more we can listen to one another, hear that those messages and those inspired insights, we every loving thought, every loving action, every loving feeling that we can have, it adds to the to that, like you talk about that journey of getting better and better. It adds to that. And eventually I feel like we're all going to be thriving and flourishing in wonderful communities and living our authentic purposes as you pointed us to. Like, what is that thing that really lights you up? So for our listeners, I certainly encourage that contemplation. What is that thing that really, and if you don't know, that's okay, because that means you can go on a journey, connect with Dani and the Storyteller's Path, do some writing, and find out that thing that lights you up. I hear my daughter coming down the stairs, so we might get a guest appearance here, which is okay. Before we sign off, Dani, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
I would just have to say that, you know, it can be scary writing a book. It can be scary doing something that you maybe are passionate about. But think of, do you want a life where you're saying, oh, regret at the end when you're at an older age where you
Mm,
can't go after your dreams?
mm,
How about go for the things that you truly desire, even if you don't feel that everyone else is aboard? If it's
mm.
something you truly want to happen or you truly want to do, then just do it as long as it's legal and you're not going to hurt anyone and go for it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence. Your perspectives are just wonderful, Dani, and I really appreciate that you're a fellow community builder, uplifting other people who are finding their voice and helping them to refine it to really make it them the impactful ones they want to hear. Luciana, do you want to come and say hi? No? Okay. Doesn't want to come say hi. So, with that, I'm going to ask her to say thanks for watching in another way. So, I'm going to share my screen. To all of you out there listening, highest blessings and best wishes, and as well as to you and your wonderful family, Dani, and your all the people that you are impacting. Blessings to you as well. Thank you so much for coming on the Love Pod and sharing your voice and your light.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks for watching. You say ciao, ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.